time in the Pac-12. It's going to be a really fun year in the conference. So, kind of going off of that, I'm going to give you the opposite overreaction.
Okay.
Uh, this is going to be the worst SEC in about 10 years. Um, the SEC had three teams play a ranked opponent in week one. They went 0-3. All three lost by double digits, and they lost by an average of 16 points. Florida goes on the road on Thursday against Utah. Billy Napier, year two. And the score wasn't embarrassing. They lost by 13. Salt Lake City is it's a great atmosphere. It's a hard place to win. But you looked really bad. I mean, you had a lot of procedural issues. The offense didn't look good. At one point, you had two players with the same number on a punt return, and it gave Utah a first down, and Utah scored. Graham Mertz I actually didn't think looked bad. The offensive line looked atrocious. They couldn't run the football. Utah only had like 70 or 80 yards in the second half. They just kind of played like keep away, basically. So that's how the weekend started. Then on Saturday, South Carolina plays North Carolina. College game day's there. It's on ESPN. It's a neutral site game. And South Carolina made the North Carolina defense look like the 85 Bears. North Carolina had 16 tackles for loss and 9 sacks. This was one of the worst defenses in the country last year, and you got bullied by North Carolina. I thought Drake May looked really good. Certainly looked like a top 10 pick with the caliber of throws he was making, but boy, that South Carolina offense, they had a hard time running the ball. They couldn't protect Spencer Rattler. The skill guys don't look I mean it's hard when you have 9 sacks. It's just hard to look good on offense. But North Carolina allowing 17 points was really impressive. And then last night, Florida State outscores LSU 31-7 in the second half. LSU, again, they get bullied. Florida State was running like inside zone all second half, and I know Mason Smith wasn't playing, but man, LSU had no answer. They had no answer for Keon Coleman, who had 3 touchdowns. And Florida State just wrecks LSU in the second half. And LSU was projected to, like, I picked them to win the West.
Yeah, me
Like,
too.
this was the team that some people were picking to win the national championship. And listen, it's an overreaction, right? It's week one. But coming into this season, when we looked at the caliber of quarterbacks and we looked at the teams in the league, I didn't see a lot of teams that scared me
Yeah.
in this conference, right? Bryce Young was gone. Georgia's lost a ton over the last 2 years. But, I mean, Tennessee I thought looked pretty good in spurts against Virginia. But, the SEC already doesn't challenge itself a ton out of conference. And 2 of the 3 games were neutral sites, North Carolina, South Carolina, and LSU, Florida State. But man, oh man, it was a tough week for the SEC. They got a big one with Alabama, Texas. I'm sure we'll talk about it soon, but
Yeah.
rough week one for the SEC. It just means less.
It's just me. Like it takes you less. It just means more, but if you lose, it just doesn't count.
Yep, doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Um, no, I agree. That stat line for North Carolina, because I was doing my notes, because North Carolina was one of my overreactions too. We'll probably get to that one next. 9 sacks. I was like, what? 9 sacks, 16 tackles for loss. Are we talking about the same North Carolina defense that like ranked like 115th in like scoring offense last year? It was like one of the worst rush teams. I mean, South Carolina averaged negative -0.1 yards a carry in that game. Like, just like what are we talking about here? Like, even if they're improved, they're not that improved. But kudos to them for playing that way. And we'll talk about North Carolina in a second. But no, I completely agree with you. I mean, when we did our SEC preview, I said, even with some of the top teams, I was like, with Alabama, I'm like, I just feel like there's a lot of question marks on this team. And I know they blew out Middle Tennessee State. Not sure how much we can take away from that. Or like A&M blowing out who they play, New Mexico or something like that. We'll know a little bit more about them. We talked about their upcoming game against Miami, but no, I agree. And it could be an overreaction because more than likely we're probably going to be talking about either Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, probably one of those 4 or 5 teams at the end of the year is competing for a playoff spot. Because we know you're a 1 or even a 2-loss SEC team. You're going to get hyped up to be in the college football playoff. But even last night, like LSU, it was a tale of two halves. Like LSU, that first game, I mean, what was their first 3 or 4 drives? They made it into Florida State territory. They were just atrocious in the red zone, getting stuff, not getting. They were inside, I believe, the Florida State 10, and didn't come with any points to really pull away. And Florida State and LSU, for some reason, taking Harold Perkins and making him like an off-ball linebacker in the second half did not work out. They basically took him out of the game. But no, it wasn't a great showing, and especially this wasn't like, Kentucky playing, Clemson or something like that. Like the teams were pretty well matched up in those three matchups. You had two kind of mid-tier ace or with North Carolina in the ACC and South Carolina in the SEC. You had two top-tier teams in LSU and Florida State. And it just is, it was not a banner week for them. But we'll see, because they have a couple high-profile matchups here coming this week that I know we will preview. But hey, you don't have to tempt me into kind of crapping on the SEC whenever I get a chance, or we get a chance to. So I'm going to take it for all it's worth this week. Yeah,
yeah. Truly is one of our favorite pastimes is crapping on the SEC. Probably a little more than we should, realistically, because as still have the most draft picks every year in the NFL draft. Georgia's won the last 2 national championships, right? LSU won before that. So, certainly, like we say this with a little bit of a grain of salt, but Lucas and I are not the biggest SEC homers. So when we get a chance to kind of put our feet up at the SEC, we're going to take advantage of it. So,
right.
But we probably should talk about North Carolina, and I'm guessing they're going to be your next overreaction.
Yeah, my overreaction was just going off of